Listen to that sound. The snap of a plastic clamshell opening. You just paid $4.99 for that container of organic spring mix. Now look at what is inside. Wilted, slimy at the edges. 3 days past its best by date, even though you bought it yesterday. Half the container will be in the trash by Thursday. You are not paying for food. You are paying for the plastic. You are paying for the truck. You are paying for the warehouse, the cold chain, the distributor margin, the retail markup, and the labor of every hand that touched that lettuce between a field in Salinas, California, and the shelf in front of you. The food itself, the actual living nutrition, died somewhere on the highway. A 2014 study published in the Journal of Food Composition and Analysis by researchers at Penn State University measured nutrient degradation. In spinach stored under standard retail cold chain conditions, vitamin C content dropped by 47% within 7 days of harvest. Folate, one of the primary reasons people eat leafy greens, declined by 30%. Carotenoids degraded by 22%. And these measurements were taken under ideal refrigeration. The real-world supply chain, with loading docks and truck transfers, is worse. By the time produce reaches your refrigerator, you are eating a nutritional shadow of what left the field. The global fresh produce industry is worth over $380 billion a year. The cold chain logistics market adds another $280 billion. The plastic packaging sector, $350 billion. The retail grocery infrastructure, over $5 trillion worldwide. These industries converge on a single belief, that food must be grown somewhere else, by someone else, and delivered to you in a package. But what if the most nutrient-dense food available does not require a farm, a truck, a refrigerator, or even sunlight? What if it grows in 5 days, costs $3, fits inside a jar on your countertop, and contains more bioavailable protein? I am talking about sprouted seeds. Not the alfalfa garnish from the 70s. Not the soggy bean sprouts in takeout. I am talking about a biological event so nutritionally violent that a 2012 paper called it a nutrient explosion. A dry seed is a locked vault. Inside it is compressed energy, proteins, starches, vitamins, in forms you can barely access. But when you add water and wait 72 hours, every lock in that vault is blown open. Enzyme inhibitors are destroyed. Vitamins are synthesized from scratch. Compounds that did not exist in the dry seed are manufactured by the living embryo. A $3 bag of mung bean seed becomes more nutritionally valuable than the entire produce shelf it was sitting next to. And the industry that profits from your weekly grocery run cannot let you figure that out. Welcome to the invincible method. Today I am going to show you why the most powerful food system fits in your kitchen drawer. Act 2, the origin. Humans have been eating sprouted seeds for as long as we have been eating seeds. The earliest documented references appear in Chinese texts dating to 3000 BCE, physicians prescribing mung beans. The Essene sect of ancient Judea, documented in the Dead Sea Scrolls, practiced bread making using sprouted grain. Captain James Cook carried barrels of malt, partially germinated barley, on his Pacific voyages specifically to prevent scurvy. These were not folk remedies. These were practical observations that a seed changes fundamentally when it germinates. But it was not until the 20th century that biochemistry caught up to what ancient cultures already knew. In 1940, Dr. Clive Mackay at Cornell University published one of the first Western scientific analyses of sprouted soybeans. His findings were startling. Germination increased vitamin C content from 0 in the dry seed to higher than fresh orange juice. The paper was published in a wartime food bulletin because the US government was searching for cheap, stable protein. Sprouted seeds solved the problem. They were compact, lightweight, and produced fresh food anywhere, at any temperature. But here is where the discovery collided with an industry that needed it to disappear. By 1945, the war was over. The economic logic shifted. There was no profit in teaching a family to grow food on their counter for pennies. There was enormous profit in building a continental cold chain infrastructure that charged for every mile between farm and fork. The sprouting research did not get suppressed in the dramatic sense. It simply got defunded. No corporation could monetize it. The produce aisle became the only model of fresh food that America was taught. The knowledge sat in journals, implemented never. Until the 21st century, when a new generation of food scientists reopened the vault. Let us get precise about the biochemistry, because the numbers are what make this method undeniable. A dry seed is in a state of metabolic suspension. Its enzymes are locked by protease inhibitors. Its starches are compacted into granules the human gut struggles to digest. Its vitamins are minimal. The seed was not designed to be eaten. It was designed to wake. The moment water penetrates the seed coat, a cascade begins that transforms the seed from a storage vault into a biochemical factory. Phase 1. Imbibition. The seed absorbs water, swelling to 2 to 3 times its dry volume. This expansion cracks the seed coat and activates gibberellic acid, the hormone that ends dormancy. Phase 2. Enzyme activation. Within 12 to 24 hours, the embryo releases amylases that attack starch granules, converting them into maltose and glucose. Proteases begin dismantling storage proteins into individual amino acids and short peptides. Lipases break storage fats into free fatty acids. The seed is predigesting itself, converting locked, complex molecules into simple, bioavailable forms that the human body can absorb with almost zero digestive effort. Phase 3. Biosynthesis. This is where the numbers become extraordinary. The embryo does not just unlock existing nutrients, it manufactures new ones. Dr. Jianping Wu at the University of Alberta published a comprehensive review in the journal Trends in Food Science and Technology in 2020 documenting the biosynthetic changes during germination across 14 seed species. The findings were consistent and dramatic. Vitamin C, absent or negligible in dry seeds, is synthesized de novo during germination. Mung bean sprouts at day 5 contain 24 to 28 milligrams of vitamin C per 100 grams. Lentil sprouts reached 16 milligrams. These are nutritionally significant doses produced from nothing. B-complex vitamins increase across the board. Riboflavin, B2, increased by 100 to 300% across legume species. Niacin, B3, by 40 to 80%. Folate, B9, by 200 to 600% depending on species and germination duration. A 2007 study on wheat, buckwheat, and millet found that sprouted buckwheat showed a 6-fold increase in antioxidant activity compared to the dry grain. 6 times. Not 6%. 6 times. But here is what makes the prescription remarkable. It is not just that sprouts contain more nutrients. It is that those nutrients are more accessible. The anti-nutritional factors that make raw seeds difficult to digest, phytic acid, tannins, trypsin inhibitors, lectins, are systematically dismantled during germination. Phytic acid decreases by 20 to 60% in most legumes within 48 to 72 hours of germination. A 2015 meta-analysis in the journal Food Chemistry compiled data from 31 studies and confirmed that germination was the single most effective processing method for reducing phytic acid across all seed types tested. You are not just adding nutrients. You are removing the locks that prevent your body from using the nutrients that were already there. And then there is the protein. A dry mung bean contains approximately 24 grams of protein per 100 grams of dry weight. But that protein is in storage form, complex globulins compacted for dormancy, not for digestion. During germination, proteases fragment these globulins into free amino acids and short peptides, the forms your gut absorbs fastest. Dr. Rehana Sefidkin and colleagues at the University of Tehran published data in 2019 showing that free amino acid content in mung bean sprouts increased by up to 2,700%, 27 times, compared to the dry seed. The protein did not multiply. Its form changed. 27 times more bioavailable protein from the same seed, just wet. This is biological density. A 100-gram serving of 5-day-old sprouted lentils delivers more absorbable protein, more iron, more folate, and more vitamin C than 100 grams of mature spinach. And it was grown on a kitchen counter in a jar with no soil, no sun, and no supply chain. So why is the produce aisle still selling you wilted spinach in a plastic box? The answer is not nutrition. It is logistics. The modern grocery supply chain was built to maximize shelf life, transportability, and retail margin. Every decision is optimized for one variable: how long the product can survive on a shelf without looking dead. The tomato was bred for thick skin that resists bruising, not lycopene. The spinach was bred for slow wilting under fluorescent light, not folate. The lettuce was bred for crunch 10 days after harvest, not vitamin C that degrades after 3. You were eating produce that was optimized for the truck, not for your body. The cold chain represented by refrigerated trucks and warehouses is a $280 billion industry that exists solely to slow the death of harvested food long enough to sell it. Every dollar spent depends on the distance between you and your food. Sprouting eliminates that distance. The food is produced where it is consumed, on the counter where you eat. There is no harvest date, no transit time, no cold chain, no packaging, no retail margin. The seed goes from dormant to harvestable in 120 hours. A system with no distance has no supply chain. A system with no supply chain has no middlemen. A system with no middlemen generates no margin. And a system that generates no margin for the grocery industry is a system the grocery industry will never teach you. This is not conspiracy. This is structural economics. The entire architecture of the fresh produce industry, worth over $380 billion, depends on the assumption that food production happens far away. Sprouting violates that assumption completely. But the suppression goes beyond economics. It operates through cultural framing. Sprouts have been marginalized as a health food niche, associated with counterculture, with the fringe. The industry frames them as a garnish, a topping, not a staple. This is deliberate diminishment. If the public understood that a jar of 5-day-old mung beans contained more absorbable protein than a chicken breast and more vitamin C than an orange, the economic implications would be enormous. The industry just needs you to underestimate them. Because a customer who realizes they can grow a week of groceries in a jar for $3 is a customer who stops driving to the store. A 25-pound bag of sprouting mung beans costs $40 and produces roughly 250 harvests. At grocery store prices, the retail value exceeds $800. You spend $40. You bypass $800. That is a structural exit from the retail food economy. You spend $40. You bypass $800 in grocery purchases. That is not a discount. That is a structural exit from the retail food economy. What does not generate recurring revenue is not taught. What does not generate recurring revenue is not taught. This is not gardening. There is no garden. There is no soil. There is no outdoor space required. This is a biological program that you run in your kitchen using vessels you already own, and it produces fresh, nutrient-dense food every 5 days. In a continuous, overlapping cycle that never stops. Here is the protocol. The vessels. You need containers that breathe. The reason is the same air-pruning principle covered in the paper bag episode. Roots and sprouts that contact air through a porous wall branch and strengthen rather than spiraling and rotting. Impermeable plastic containers trap moisture, create anaerobic pockets, and breed mold. Breathable vessels allow air exchange, which keeps the sprouts aerobic, crisp, and safe. Your 3 best vessels. Vessel 1. A wide-mouth glass mason jar with mesh or cheesecloth secured with a rubber band. It has been used commercially and domestically for over a century. The glass is inert. The mesh allows drainage and airflow. Total cost, $0. Vessel 2. A paper grocery bag, the same unbleached craft bag from the previous episode, perforated with a fork on the bottom and sides. The cellulose breathes. The bag functions as a vertical sprouting column that you roll closed at the top to maintain humidity while keeping airflow. Vessel 3. A colander or mesh strainer lined with a single layer of damp cloth, set inside a bowl. The mesh drains. The cloth retains the seeds. The bowl catches runoff. This is the highest volume option. A large colander can process a full cup of dry seed per cycle. Do not use sealed plastic containers, Ziploc bags, or any vessel without drainage and airflow. Anaerobic conditions promote bacterial growth. Sprouting is an aerobic process. The seeds need to breathe. The seed rotation. You are going to run 4 species on a staggered rotation. This is the perpetual cycle. A new harvest every day once the system reaches steady state. Species 1, mung beans. The workhorse. Highest yield per volume. Ready in 4 to 5 days. Mild, crunchy, versatile. Use in salads, stir-fry, sandwiches, wraps, or eat raw by the handful. Protein powerhouse. 27x more bioavailable amino acids. Species 2, lentils, ready in 3 to 4 days. Earthy, peppery, substantial, the highest folate producer in the rotation. 600% increase over dry seed. Best as a base for grain bowls, soups, or mixed into cooked rice. Species 3, broccoli seeds, ready in 4 to 5 days. These are the antioxidant heavyweights. A 2004 study by Drive Paul Talali at Johns Hopkins showed that 3-day-old broccoli sprouts contain 20 to 50 times the sulforaphane. You would need to eat 3 pounds of cooked broccoli to match the sulforaphane in 1 ounce of broccoli sprouts. Species 4, sunflower seeds. Use hulled, raw, black oil sunflower. Ready in 3 to 5 days depending on harvest method. Dense, nutty, filling. The highest caloric density in the rotation. These are a legitimate meal component, not a garnish. The 5-day life cycle. Every cycle follows the same sequence. It takes 2 minutes of active labor per day. Day 0, the soak. Measure 2 to 3 tablespoons of dry seed into your vessel. Cover with water. Soak for 8 to 12 hours. Do this before bed. This is the imbibition phase. The seed absorbs water and begins activating its enzyme cascade. Day 1, the drain. In the morning, drain all water. If using a jar, invert it at an angle in a bowl so residual water drips out. If using a bag or colander, simply drain and set in a well-ventilated spot. Rinse the seeds with fresh water. Drain again. Day 2, the root emergence. Rinse and drain twice, morning and evening. You will see white root tips pushing out of the seed coats. The enzymatic conversion is in full acceleration. Protein is being fragmented. Vitamins are being synthesized. The vault is opening. Day 3, the expansion. Rinse and drain twice. The sprouts are now 1 to 2 inches long. For lentils, this is harvest ready. Day 4, the density peak. Rinse and drain. Mung beans will be 2 to 3 inches. Broccoli sprouts will have tiny green cotyledons emerging if exposed to ambient light. The nutrient profile is at or near its peak. For most species, this is the optimal harvest window, maximum nutritional density per gram of fresh weight. Day 5, harvest. Final rinse. Drain thoroughly. Transfer to a bowl or container. Eat immediately or store in the refrigerator for up to 5 days. But fresh is always superior, which is the entire point of producing the food where you eat it. The perpetual cycle. Here is where the math becomes a weapon. Start a new batch every single day. 1 jar, bag, or colander per species, staggered across 4 days. By day 5, your first batch is ready. On day 6, your second batch is ready. By the end of the first week, you are harvesting a fresh batch of a different species every day, an unbroken chain of peak nutrition food with 0 gaps. The daily yield from a 3 tablespoon soak, approximately 1 to 2 cups of fresh sprouts, across 4 species running simultaneously, 4 to 8 cups per day. That is 28 to 56 cups of fresh, enzyme-active, nutrient-dense food per week. The seed cost for that weekly volume, approximately $3 to $5 in bulk seed. Now compare. The average American household spends $75 to $100 per week on fresh produce at the grocery store. The nutrient density of that produce has already degraded by 30 to 50% before it reaches the refrigerator. The sprout rotation delivers higher nutrient density at full freshness at 1/20th the cost. $3 replaces 50, not in theory, in biology.
Act 6, closing and call to action. Let us step back and see what you have. If you have followed this series from the beginning, here is the system you now own.
You built a clay seed ball and threw it on the ground. A garden planted itself. You buried a clay pot in the bed and poured water into it once a week. The garden watered itself. You covered the soil with leaves and kitchen scraps. The garden fertilized itself. You planted open-pollinated seed, let the weak die, and saved the survivor's seeds. The garden adapted itself. You sealed seeds in a dark container on your closet shelf. A week of microgreens grew itself. You nested 2 paper bags, filled them with compost, and buried a tomato deep. A season of fruit grew itself. And now, you have soaked a tablespoon of seeds in a jar and rinsed them twice a day. A perpetual, rotating supply of the most nutrient-dense food on Earth is producing itself on your kitchen counter for $3 a week. No farm, no truck, no cold chain, no plastic packaging, no retail margin, no supply chain, no dependency. Every link in the industrial food chain exists to solve a problem you no longer have. The grocery store exists because food is produced far away. Yours is produced where you eat. The cold chain exists because harvested food is dying. Yours is alive when you put it in your mouth. The packaging exists to delay spoilage. Yours does not spoil because it was never shipped. The entire infrastructure of the modern food economy is an elaborate solution to a single problem: distance. The distance between where food grows and where people live. Sprouting reduces that distance to zero. The produce aisle becomes irrelevant, not because the food there is bad, but because the food on your counter is better, fresher by 1,500 miles, denser by 27 times, cheaper by 95%, and produced by a biological process so simple that the only technology it requires is water and time. You are not a gardener. You are not a farmer. You are a systems operator running a biological program in your kitchen, a program that takes 2 minutes per day, costs less than a cup of coffee per week, and produces more absorbable nutrition than the entire produce section of any supermarket in the country. The seed was always the most advanced food technology on Earth. We just forgot to open it. The knowledge survives. What you do with it is yours. If this series has changed how you think about food, subscribe to the Invincible Method and hit the bell. Share this with someone still paying $5 for a clamshell of wilted greens. Every like pushes this past the algorithm that profits from the distance between you and your food. This is not the end. This is the foundation. Build on it. This is the foundation. Build on it.